Welcome to a new Beyond the Den episode, where Farmer Piddy and I dive into the intricate world of wolf game. We're unpacking the significance of farmers and their strategic choices behind burning Gen 2 sheep for chops. Discover Farmer Piddy's rationale behind his major farmer investment, understand the implications of recent governance votes, and unravel the complexities of wool pricing and peak credits. Join us for an insightful look at the decisions that are shaping the wolf game landscape. Stay tuned. Our initial talk was burning G2s for chops. What are your thoughts on that? There's some people in the Discord that are doing that currently. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around making that happen.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few factors at play. One is your cost basis, right? So, what did you spend to produce those sheep?
Yep.
Because that's really going to determine kind of like how much profits you make depending on where you burn it. And by the way, when people say, "Oh, I'm burning a sheep for chops," I'm assuming that they're going ahead and they're turning those chops into wool. That might not be the right assumption. So, and the reason I say that is, a sheep, it is chops. Like a sheep is chops, but it's chops that you can recharge and you can do stuff with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You've always got those chops locked in with the sheep, but once you burn it, now you only have chops and you can't recharge them. You can't do anything with it. So, in my view, I'm only going to burn a sheep when I'm ready to immediately transfer those chops into wool. Because there's literally no advantage to burning a sheep, just to burn it and sit in chops, if that makes sense. So those are a few assumptions there, but for me, I'm waiting. I want to see chops go higher against wool. So right now, I'll just say for the last several months, it's been trading in this range between 15 wool per chop. And then it went as high as 23 on Feral Flips a few days ago. Ever since the most recent round of voting went into play, they've been kind of performing a little better against wool. But for me, I want to see that 30 to 40 range before I really start burning sheep. I may never see that. So, I may need to pivot that strategy, but I do believe we're going to see that range again. And that's where I really want to burn some sheep because that's really going to maximize my profits. The other thing there too is for the last 10 months, or I guess 11 months, I haven't had a structure to breed in. So I've been using other people's structures, which just means my cost basis on my sheep and my breeding is a little bit higher. Honestly, what I've been breeding at is kind of the new rates, the new base rates for breeding that everyone is having to pay now. That's kind of what I've been paying for the last 11 months, just renting barns. So my cost basis being a little higher means I'm going to have a little bit more patience. I'm going to try to wait for that chop value to go up against wool. But when the chop value goes up pretty hard against wool, that's the window that I'm looking to burn some sheep in.
Yeah. Those are great points. For those that may not know, how does that value go up? How does the correlation between chops and wool go up?
Yeah, so a few things. Well, one would be if the sheep floor goes up, you're going to see, I would say sheep floor goes up against wool. So let's say wool is going sideways and then sheep are pumping because people are bullish on the game. They want to get a sheep. Maybe there's some sort of event that we're doing. That's the window when sheep are pumping against wool, or maybe all the assets start going up, like wolves and sheep together. But that's usually going to mean we're going to see the chops value go up because there's either going to be a big arbitrage opportunity there where you can literally buy a sheep, let's say, and immediately burn it for a lot more wool and the market is going to basically fill that arbitrage gap. But that's one thing that can come into play. But honestly, the other is just trading. Like on feral flips, for example, there's people that'll go on there and they'll just like, they don't understand liquidity or they just don't care. And they'll just dump, 10,000 chops into wool, and it'll cause the price to drop by 40 or 50%. And then it gets eaten up really fast by people that are paying attention. So, feral flips is a great opportunity to kind of like move in and out of chops and wool, but the liquidity is still pretty thin. So if I wanted to just, burn all my sheep and just dump them into wool on feral flips, I would destroy the price of chops and wool, chops against wool, in a matter of minutes, but it would get eaten up pretty quick. So you kind of like, you've got to sort of like drip sell off, if that makes sense, assuming the liquidity stays the same for a while.
Yeah. You're going to have a bunch of angry wolves
Yeah.
knocking on your door if that's the case, right?
Yeah. But then there's been some big buying opportunities too. Like there was, I think about a month or two ago, there was some big sell-offs, and we saw the price of chops and wool go down to, there was a window where I bought a decent amount of chops at 12 wool per chop. So like I bought like 1,000 chops or something like that. And then it quickly like went all the way back up to 20. So like if you're paying attention, there's some really good moments there where you can snipe and kind of take advantage of that, the illiquidity there, as long as you're doing it with like smaller amounts.
Yeah. Very interesting. So you're waiting for 30 chops to wool, right?
Yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah. I think the other thing is, like if we see a bunch of new people coming into the game, like I'll just be honest with you, they don't understand chops. They don't understand wool. A lot of people are just going to go and they're just going to go buy a sheep. They're not going to know like the difference between a Gen 2 and a Gen 1 and a Gen 0. Like they're just going to be buying shit. And when that happens, like it may not even be smart to burn a sheep for chops. It might just be better just to sell the thing on OpenSea or Blur, because you just might get a ridiculous amount of ETH for it because people just don't know what they're doing. So I don't know, when I look at my flock and how I want to take profits, chops, burning them for chops is certainly an option, but like I'm not opposed to just straight up selling it for ETH on OpenSea, and then I can use that to buy wool or do whatever the heck I want to with it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you factor in gas fees too.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I was speaking with MetaHulk really quick in the Discord, and he had mentioned that that's his play right now. I mean, he is just chopping up his G2s. I don't even know if he's depleting the energy on them. I don't know what he's doing, but he's converting directly into wool. I don't know. At the current prices of wool right now, I mean, you're looking at what, $50, $60, in ETH, right? So it's like, does it make sense if you factor in the gas fees, unless the sheep was depleted?
Yeah. Yeah, I think once they're depleted, that makes it a little bit more advantageous. I mean, if you've already collected and used all that energy, you can like a Gen 2 sheep, let's say around like 700 energy, 600 to 700 energy. If you collect with that and you're not daisy chaining your farmers, you're just straight up collecting. And then every, 15 days or so, you have to collect and then restart again. You're going to basically, if you did that and then burned for chops at the current rates, you would get about 30 to 35,000 wool collectively from that sheep. But if you were to just straight up, birth the sheep and then burn it for chops immediately, you're going to get less than 15,000 wool. So using the energy properly and actually collecting, it's going to expand your ROI a lot more on these Gen 2 sheep, especially if you've been breeding to, more into the higher numbers, like 600-700 max energy.
Yeah, that's a good point. How about resources? There obviously we know that the team is going to increase the utilization rate of these resources. We don't know exactly to what just yet, but why aren't resources pumping?
Well, I think the last 2 weeks, resources have gotten absolutely destroyed against chops. Um, water, most of all, and I brought that up in Discord yesterday, and then, oh man, yeah, that ended up backfiring on me. But shouldn't have done that. But
What happened?
even,
What happened?
oh,
What?
well, shoot, dude. Okay, I went into Discord and I was like, and I posted a picture of the chops to water chart. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I had some talking points or whatever. And then Corey just happens to pop in, and then everyone starts like bitching about the water exploit. And then Corey gets mad at Seed and just attacks all of his barns in that moment. And I just so happened to be breeding in one of Seed Phrase's barns. And then sure enough, as soon as Corey posted that, I was like, damn it. I ran to the computer, like opened it up, and sure enough, he hit my barn that I was in. So that was actually the first sheep that I've had stolen from me. And in a moment, I was like, oh, maybe I should like try to rent an A8 or something
Right?
to get it back, because he used one of his Gen 2 A7s. But I was just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I need to let this go. I don't want
No,
to like
dude,
start a
it's
war with him, so not in my
well,
interest.
yeah. Well, I woke up this morning and to my surprise, I saw a notification. I go, motherfucker, and somebody raided my barn. So
Oh shit!
I'm
Yeah.
going to share my screen with this guy here. Trying to figure out who it is. Let's do that real quick. Wolf 4362 stole 278.16 chops from my sheep.
What was the number again?
That's
I'm gonna look it up.
Wolf number 4362.
Right.
I could tell you
We're gonna do
this
a little recon
number.
here.
I can tell you this number 4362. I'm fucking coming for you, dude. I literally I thought about you all morning. So I'm gonna figure out who you are. I've done some investigations. I got some resources here. And
Oh, okay.
number 4362, I think I have an inclination of who it is, but you're gonna get walloped. All right, doggy. So watch your back. All right,
Yeah,
so
I was telling
yeah,
Godwin about that, and we were just like, yeah, it sucks because he got hit by Corey a few days ago when Corey went like ape shit, and he attacked like 26 barns
yeah,
one morning. I got lucky; I didn't get hit that morning, but I have two friends that got hit. And as much as it sucks, it's like, oh man, but it's so dang, like, it's so good for the game. Like this is
yeah,
what this is part of what makes Wolf Game so fun, is this game of risk where you've got a lot on the line with these breeds, and wolves can just come in and do their thing if you're not
yeah,
protected. And recently,
yeah.
most people have not been using their farmers for protection.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it definitely puts people on high alert. And
yeah.
I love the social aspect of this game. And it is only going to intensify. So 4362, I'm going to find out who you are. And once there is some sort of challenge, I hope it be a physical challenge. I'm going to challenge you to a duel, and I can't wait, brother. So yeah, so let's go on. Let's go on to the next subject here. Ash from our Discord, he's asking about credits.
Oh man,
Yeah,
that's
what are your thoughts on credits?
so if you've been paying attention to me, I in the Discord over the towards the end of the summer, like I started aggressively accumulating credits, and at least aggressively for me, like I bought about 250,000 credits. Most of that I was able to get in um, just under one wool per credit. So I took for me, that's a pretty hard stance. Like I took a hard stance there. I really liked that from a angle in the game to really try to flip those for 5, 6, 7 wool. I'm not writing that out yet. I think it really depends on what the team decides to do with credits. If we've got some cool stuff that's coming up here in the next few months that will require credits. So there's a chance that we see them pump a little bit. But I think one of the hard situations we're in is, Shep released this peak model in what was it? I guess June earlier this June, and the advantage for Wolves were that they were just going to print these credits. Well, especially compared to like sheep, which is fine. Like that was actually intentional, and it was a way to make wolves much more valuable than sheep. One of the biggest differentiators in those two assets was the wolf's ability to produce credits. But what happened was they didn't actually fully launch peak. And what I mean by that is there's no leaderboard. There's not really an incentive for people to play peak yet. And that is changing in the coming weeks. And we've got, we do have the Sheps Cup now, which is, that's good, and that's in place. But, for us to be burning through credits at such a high velocity to give people FOMO on them, we've got to have a lot more peak activity to keep up with the credit production. So, I think we're in a tough spot right now with credits because, although we've got some things planned, there doesn't seem to be light at the end of the tunnel for kind of closing that gap. And really, I think looking back on it, I'm not, I don't regret making my bet on credits. I have a goal of positioning myself in the game where I have a little bit of everything. And at this point, I do have exposure to every single resource. I have a lot of chops that I've stacked through my breeding. I've got my wolf now, I've got some structures, but I really want to diversify in that strategy. So I don't regret that. But what I think is most frustrating is, if you'd have asked me in June, oh, it'll be December and we won't have a leaderboard yet, and we won't, like, peak won't be this competitive place where people are really, throwing down, large amounts of wool and playing these games, I would have been really shocked. And so that's kind of where I placed my bets, and it just didn't work out for me.
Yeah. That's a great perception though, right? It's like there's so many people that have picked a certain way to play the game and it hasn't turned out the best move for them, and they just get angry and they sound like they're little children complaining. Right? I mean, there's plenty of moves that I made that I'm like, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I made those moves. I burned my sheep really early on for chops. When chops value wasn't incredibly high at all. And, I was like, I'm exchanging my chops for water. I'm going to get, I think it was like 15-1 at that point. So, but now you're looking at close to 30. So just little things like that obviously they add up. I love to play. What was that? What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, like, in that strategy or that mindset, what you want to avoid is putting yourself into a corner, right? So going all in on one thing, that's like that. Rarely is that going to be a good strategy with wolf game. But, finding angles in the game where you can sort of get better EV, or, if you want to get exposure to some things, like, get some exposure, but having like the all in or all out mentality, it's either going to be a smash hit for you or it's going to leave you wrecked. And so to me, I'd rather like diversify within the game and kind of have an approach where I've got a little bit of everything. It's like diversifying in alt season, and you've got alts that are just going off like popcorn. Well, when one pops, you want to take some profits and put that somewhere else, whether it's Ethereum
Yeah.
or if you want to roll it into another alt. It's that same like methodical approach, and I'm trying to have with the game.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. We're seeing a lot of that in the markets right now. I mean, we're about to pop off with some of these altcoins. I mean, they have been popping off, but I bought a little bit of took some leverage, which I never really do, on XRP. What was it, 2 days ago? So I took leverage on Ape, did very well with that. I mean, just small leverage, but going into XRP, I think that there's going to be another big bump on some of these larger coins, right?
Yeah. It's nice to see a bull market here.
Yeah. 100%. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about your recent sweep too with farmers.
Yeah, so I'm still a breeder, still going to breed, but I have had a massive shift in sort of the makeup of my bag.
Right after you bought your structure, your barn.
Yeah. Well, I'm still Basically, here's kind of where my thoughts were on that. One, I've been structureless for 11 months, and the breeding rates, the cost to breed, it was low enough in the barns that I had where I didn't need a structure. Like I was happy to pay low amounts of wool. Both barns I had under 4,000 wool for the cost of breeding, which is that's pretty cheap. But with the governance voting, it was very clear to me immediately that the people who are getting screwed over the most, well, that's kind of negative, but the people who are like the losers of the vote were the structure owners that wanted to rent out their structure. Mm-hmm. And then the people who were playing the game that didn't have structures and they were renting barns. Basically because the base fees came up significantly, that meant like my barn that I was just breeding in, I just got out of it. And instead of paying 3,500 wool, it's like 7,500. Well, like I'm not interested in paying 7,500 wool to breed a sheep. I knew that was going to be something that I was either going to have to get my own barn or stop breeding. And I didn't want to stop breeding. So I did get my own barn. And then I also got my own bathhouse as well. And I turned that into a jug house. But I'm seeing in the game, there's a massive shift for me from focusing on breeding and really focusing on gathering now. So the farmer suite for me was really a way to kind of protect my profits in the game. I didn't sell wool for those farmers. I did trade a shitcoin and made like 4x in 6 hours, and then used that to sweep farmers.
What was the shitcoin? What was the shitcoin?
Oh, it's called Coin. The Coin. If you look in Discord, there's some guys talking about it. I put like a half Ethereum into it at like 10 p.m. and then I woke up
after 5 years.
I was waking up every hour checking the price, and because you couldn't like put a limit order on it. And I woke up around 4 a.m. and it was at 2 Ethereum. So it's like, okay, that's enough for me. And I just yanked the 2 Ethereum out.
Good for you.
But that was fun. So then I used that to buy some wool. So I actually doubled the amount of liquid wool that I have. And then I bought ultimately I bought like 12 farmers with that, but I'm up to 19 now. But the main thing there is the reason I want to go in on farmers is like the way this game is going. I think it's going to be hard for people who expect like, oh, I'm just going to go in, I'm going to play the game. It's going to be easy. There's going to be little risk. And I'm just going to be printing, all this wool or all these chops. Like, that's just not that's not how Wolf Game has played out. And I really don't expect that to change. I expect, the EV to be tight a lot of times, And if you're not finding an edge, and there are ways to find an edge in this game, then you're really just churning. You're just churning assets and rotating them. You want to be playing the game in a way that grows your bag, and there's definitely ways to do that in Wolf Game. But to me, especially with these recent changes, breeding's getting much more expensive. I want more longevity out of my Gen 2 sheep. Farmers are the way to do that. And with breeding being more expensive, now the risk of getting one stolen is like you lose a lot more, right? Because you spent a lot more to even start that breed. So farmers, in my opinion, the farmer floor was in. I think they bottomed. I don't think Joes are going to go below 0.03 again. So I just started scooping up as many as I could.
Is that what you got them at, 0.03?
I was buying Joes at 0.03. I got a few diesels around like 0.05, 0.06. And then I got some Janes and some kids around 0.1 to 0.12. But I mean, the cool thing is now with gathering, so like you can use farmers to daisy chain your gathering, and that's gonna put you in a spot where you're earning a lot more wool for the energy you're spending on that. You're depleting through that sheep, but that's gonna make your gathering much more profitable if you're able to use those farmers to stack them. And then also, if you have a wolf, like stacking, daisy chaining your farmers and then attacking your own sheep with your wolf isn't like, do the math on it. It is absolutely insane how much you will save. It pays for the recharge for the wolf. It pays for, a lot. It even pays for recharging the Gen 2 sheep. If you've got your own jug house, that makes it easier, but still, like, you can make gathering into a very profitable little business if you have the right pieces in place. Like a sheep and a bunch of farmers is not the same thing as a sheep and a bunch of farmers and a wolf. And all you need is one wolf. You're talking about that wolf takes all of your profits and multiplies it by like 2 or 3, 2 or 3x, just by having the wolf to attack yourself because the taxes are so dang high. So that's kind of the strategy, that I'm kind of going down right now.
Yeah, it's almost the equivalent of having another wolf and looting, right? Because you're basically, in 10 days that it takes a sheep to collect, it could take, one loot for a wolf to hit that, right? So so when you're daisy chaining, how many farmers are you typically looking at chaining?
So I want to get as deep into the gather as I possibly can. The furthest I've ever gotten, this was earlier in the summer, I got to like day 60 or something with one sheep, and I was able to claim, I think at the time it was like 350 chops worth of resources. But basically, once you get past like day 20 to 25, it really starts to pay dividends because you're gathering 2x, basically twice as much resources as the person that just started on day 1. But by the time you get to day 50, you're gathering 3 times the amount of resources a day. And then if you can claim those or attack yourself on a sunny day, you get an extra 20% bonus on top of that. So main thing there, though, is from a number of farmers, what I'm doing right now, it depends on what farmers you have. But I will say gathering protection with farmers is immensely more powerful now than it was a week ago. And it's because the new cooldown rules that went into effect through governance voting. So, for example, a Big Daddy, before the governance vote, the 30-day cooldown didn't start until after his farmer action was done. So if you used a Big Daddy to protect a sheep that was gathering for 20 days, then the cooldown would start for another 30 days after that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's basically a 50-day cooldown. You're only going to get one Big Daddy action every 50 days. But now the farmer the cooldown starts at the beginning of the action. So as soon as your big daddy is done with his 20 days protection, he's going to be ready to go in just another 10 more days. Right. So the type of farmer you have will determine how many farmers you need to protect a sheep 24/7. But with my makeup, I can basically protect a sheep 24/7 endlessly with 3 farmers. Because by the time it gets to the 3rd farmer and you use that one, your first one is now basically ready to go. But so with 18 farmers, let's say, or I think I'm at like 19 now or whatever, but let's say I have 18. Well, that's enough to keep 6 sheep going 24/7. And right now, there's just not a lot of wolves that are really, I mean, some of them are trying to hunt and use, find the farmer that's cooling off and attack them. But even, you're a wolf owner. I'm a wolf owner. I've tried that. And it's a lot of work, right? you gotta like look for it and wait for it, have a lot of patience and pay attention. And right now it's not a lot of guys doing that in the game. There are some, but not a lot. So, when you got, let's say 6 sheep and they're all gathering 3x the amount of resources that all the other sheep are gathering. Oh, and by the way, because you're not restarting your gathering constantly, you're using less energy. You do all of that, and then you attack yourself with your own wolf. Like, no, like, don't come in here and tell me that the game is negative EV or whatever for gathering. Like, don't come in here and say that, oh, it's impossible to gather profitably. Like, I'm going to call bullshit. There are ways to play this game. The daily multiplier was there for this reason. The game is not designed for you to just come in, collect for 10 days, and then start recollecting and spend all that energy on these resources. Like, you're not going to do great. So if you want to, make your game go longer, make your game more profitable, buy some damn farmers. And that's exactly what I did. And the cool thing is right now with the way the farmers market works, let's say I've got my 18 my 18 farmers, and I want to use them to, make 6 sheep gather 24/7. Well, what I can actually do is I could apply those 18 farmers to 10 different sheep. And then occasionally where I need to, just rent one from the market. Right. And what happens is, so like, you can have a sheep and you can use 2 of your farmers that you own and then rent one every 3rd farmer. And the multiplier, the deeper you get into the collecting, it pays for the farmer's market and a lot more. So, having 18 farmers, that doesn't just mean I can collect 24/7 with 6 sheep. If I want to throw in a few rentals in there, I can make that, I can stretch that to 10, even 12 sheep.
Yeah. Are you worried about that short window of time between your daisy chaining? What the hell is the word daisy chaining anyway? I mean, why do we keep saying daisy chaining? But if you think about it, I think that word has been said at least 14 times throughout this episode.
Sorry.
But no,
it's all good. It over and over again.
All right, Daisy. Okay, Daisy. But there is that 1 to 4 second time frame between chaining farmers.
Yeah, I would call it I texted Godwin. This is like, anytime I have a farmer change, I send him a text. I'm like, farmer change in T minus 30 minutes with like some like alarms that are going off and whatnot. I told him, I was like, if you remember when you did your first breeding and you were just stressed out, and it was like, oh, like, all right, like, I'm so stressed, I'm not protecting, and like, what if a wolf comes in and takes it? It's a very similar feeling, but it like punches it into like a 4-second time frame. So like, yeah, your heart does pump a little bit harder, especially when you've got a lot on the line. If you've got a farmer that's rotating over and you've got 400 chops sitting there, you got to have a strategy to make sure that you're safe. So I've got some certain things that I do, some checks and balances. I've got a proper procedure, I'll just say, to make sure there are not wolves around. And I have had a situation where it was actually never settle I think it was never settled. It's been a while, but it was that one big claim I got to like day 60, and I was scoping out. I was really paying attention. I had it on my desktop, not mobile. So you do not try to do a farmer change on mobile.
You can't do anything on
No,
mobile right now.
because you got to like reload the browser.
Yeah.
No, you don't have time for that shit. But on desktop, I zoom out so I can see the whole map, right? Or at least a larger part of the map. And I can see if there's any movement. And so sure enough, I've got like 10 seconds left on this sheet that's cooling down, and I'm ready to go. And then with about 5 seconds, I see this little wolf, like he's moving, he's coming right for me. And my heart just starts pounding. And I immediately like click on, I've got my sheep ready, and I had to just claim really quick. Because I didn't want to try to add another farmer and risk him getting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, those moments they can, it cause your heart to go a little pitter patter. I'll just say that.
Sure. Yeah.
But it can get intense. But like I said, if you can get in there and have a strategy like that, like you'd be surprised at how profitable this game can be and about how much you can grow your bag. And I'm tracking all of that for myself. So I would encourage people to track that, because if you're not tracking what you're doing in the game, it's going to be really hard to know. Okay, does this make sense? Do I want to try this? Or how well is this strategy working for me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Love that, Piddy, man. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, we were talking about governance votes.
Oh yeah.
What's another one that we have on the list here?
Overall, I'll just say this regarding governance. There's a lot of different perspectives that people have on whether or not we should be increasing the costs to produce these Gen 2s to actually play the game.
Yeah.
And I understand like multiple perspectives on that. Even myself, I've kind of like, I've floated around and like, I kind of feel this way about it, but also like there's these points over here. I'll just say this. My interactions with the guys closer that are on the team, with Term, Zaw, Bry, these core group, they don't seem overly concerned with it. And they also know about, a number of things that are coming down the pipe. So like one perspective I've kind of landed on right here is we have increased costs, yes, but we also have some cool shit coming down the pipeline very soon. Things that are going to incentivize gameplay more. So like, with Shep's Cup and the points, Valley leaderboard, these things are coming in this Wolf Game 1.0 in the next few months. And I'll just say, if the team gets that right, that combined with our increased expenses is really good looking, because it just means we're going to be burning a lot more wool. And we're going to be contributing a lot more wool to the peak rewards. So yeah, if we just increase the expenses, but we didn't actually release more rewards, release points, peak leaderboards and stuff like that, I would have a little bit more of I don't know, maybe a frustrated outlook on the current situation. But like I said, if they get the incentives right, having that combined with the increased expenses, it could actually turn out to be a huge win. So I think a lot of it just goes back to, give us incentive to play the game. When are we going to get leaderboards? When are we going to get more rewards? When are we going to get points? Valley leaderboard and whatnot. And I think they're going to get that right. And I think it's going to be a huge boost to the ecosystem.
Yeah. I'm going to battle against that. I think that, it also depends. You got to look at onboarding, right? If onboarding is our goal, and how many active wallets we have right now, I don't know the exact number here, but increasing costs to play the game with our current group of players can be very challenging and it could
Yeah.
really tire out the players who are like you talked about. But it's not like you stop playing the game, right? You talked about, okay, listen, maybe I'm
Correct.
not going to breed as much anymore. It's not like you
Yeah.
said, all right, I'm done with the game, I'm not playing, I'm going to go do something else. You just change your strategy, right? So
Yep. Exactly.
how
Yeah.
do we onboard new players into the game with the increased cost, though? Are we jumping the gun with doing that right off the bat? And I'm from the camp that I think we are, but obviously I don't have all the right answers either. So it's
Yeah.
and that's why governance is important.
Yeah. I agree. I think this is where I've landed on with some thoughts around this. Earlier, what I was saying was, um, the two parties that really got screwed the most with these votes were the structure owners that wanted to rent out and the non-structure owners that were renting barns. And it's interesting. I did a little poll recently on Twitter, and I asked basically, "Hey, Wolf Game active players, do you own your own structure or are you renting?" And it came out like 80% owned their own structure. So one, a lot of the current player base, and by the way, we have about 500 to 600 active wallets each week playing the game. And I'm sure some people have multiple wallets, but just from like a point of reference, that's how many people we're talking about. Those are people that actually log in at least once a week. So what I was saying there was like the game right now, all the structure owners are the people who stuck around and are playing the game. And I'll just say this. There was a huge gap between non-structure owners and structure owners. And it looked like this. Like me, I had to pay, let's say 4,000 to 5,000 wool to breed a sheep.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing that still pretty profitably. Like I was able to rent barns and recharge my sheep for a total cost basis of less than 10,000 wool for each Gen 2 sheep that I was producing. And I'm getting a return on those of about 30 to 35,000 wool when it's all said and done. So like that's a pretty good model, and I was still having to pay a decent amount. Structure owners weren't having to pay jack. Like they were paying 1,000 wool to breed, and 2,000 grass. So like when you combine that with the fact that most of the people in the game were structure owners, they were getting off with really, really easy breeding.
Yeah.
And these changes that we've implemented have basically taken that and put it to a much better minimal requirement. The problem, in my opinion, this is the real problem. In doing that, in basically saying, hey, structure owners, you're going to actually have to like risk more to produce these Gen 2 sheep. Yeah. This is too easy. In the process of doing that, which I think was the right thing to do, we've basically screwed over anybody that wasn't a structure owner even more. Yeah. So the whole concept of like structure game, it just became more of a structure game, in my opinion. And I think one thing that we have to get right, and I've been voicing this in the Farmhands Council Discord, I've voiced it with a number of other people, like we have to find a way to get the group of people that want to play this game without a structure, make it fun for them, and find ways to give them a way in the game to have risk, to actually earn some wool or some resources and whatnot. Because right now, we're increasing the costs of the game, and that makes a lot of sense to do that to the structure owners, but it's just screwing over the little guy. So I think that's the thing that we have to find a way to get that right. We've got to get people the ability to go onto OpenSea, to buy a freaking sheep, and to start playing the game, and to have fun doing it, and to do it profitably. I think if we can strike that and hit that on the head, that's really gonna make the game so much better, because you're able to bring in a whole new level of player, that they're not going to pay, let's say these structures, there's only 5 structures under 1 ETH. If we had a new wave of players come into the game, most people are not going to be able to afford a structure. They're going to be able to buy these Gen 2 sheep, but they got to be able to do something with them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that even comes before the whole frictionless onboarding, because if our current niche is crypto degens, right? Because it is. That's that's how we took off, especially in the beginning with, looking back at old tweets of the Shep on day one, and that whole first week, it was people piling in, and then you see Portal Coin. You see how many people are willing to flood their timelines, and it's insane. I did it for a week.
It's so
it was
painful.
Actually insane. I know it's extremely painful, and then it continues to go on. It's actually, I think, diluting their brand at this point, right? But it's like, it's proven that people will degen into things. And if you're right, it's like, if we can get some, like, the onboarding, the ease of, okay, what do I purchase and how quickly can I play the game, and then start earning a little bit of money. Okay. But that's the first thing we need to tackle, rather than, all right, how do we onboard this normal person into the game? Like, we're not there yet. We have a solid foundation, but we have to there's a lot of things that we have to get right first before we roll it out to the masses.
Yeah. So, and I'm confident in the team, and really excited about this 2.0 or whatever we're going to call it, coming out in 2024. And I'm confident that we have a lot of fun things planned over the next few months as well. So, can't wait to see that stuff roll out. And I don't mean to be all doom and gloom. I just I really have a lot of energy for the smaller players. Like, I have a lot of energy for making the game fun and playable for people that don't have 10 ETH to drop into this thing. And a lot of that comes from the fact that that's me. That I've been in that spot. So.
Yeah. Craig from the Discord asks, when big tweet tonight? And when $15?
I expect a tweet
tonight.
I'm just this is like the first time I'm actually like being on a platform since being on the Farmhands Council, and I'm like, I don't want to say anything that'll like that'll get me kicked off of the council. But I know, like, we just voted in the Farmhands Council about a few things, and I think there'll be a tweet coming out in the next few days, probably, with some updates. The other thing is $15 wool. Okay. So if you follow me on Twitter, I've recently changed my $15 wool. I put it in the title of my Twitter account. I changed it to 15-cent wool by 2025 as a fun little gimmick, and a number of people caught it, and it was funny. But so this is not me going back on my prediction. First of all, I firmly believe that someday wool is going to hit $15. I firmly believe that. I do not have a way to like tie that to 2025. Originally, my original like bullish take was $15 wool by 2025, and that model is completely dependent on us having a successful peak and valley that burns tons of wool. And in my opinion, the delays that we've had, just with peak and with participation and stuff like that, I think it's going to make it harder to make $15 wool doable by 2025. So I'm not as optimistic on that as I once was. But really, like, we're going to burn so much wool. Wolf Game is not going away after this bull market is over. I'm convinced of that. Like, Wolf Game is an OG NFT gaming project. It's here to stay. It'll be here for the next cycle, even after this one. It's going to hit $15. It's just a matter of when. And we just got to burn a lot of wool. We got to burn shit tons of wool, and we'll hit that $15 mark at some point. Maybe that's in this bull market, but maybe it's in the next one. I don't know, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Mark my words. And all the people that are making fun of me in Discord, I am taking screenshots. I am taking receipts. I will come back with vengeance. There will be a day, and you probably won't even be in Discord anymore, but I'll be there, and I'll be gloating about $15 wool.
Love it, man. Love it. Piddy, anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think, let me see. I think we covered most of it. I'll say, if I can give myself a little plug here, I don't know if people have been paying attention to some of my content recently. I did want to just kind of like signal. I've been doing this this thing called the Valley Report. I've produced 2 so far. I just kind of wanted to like throw that out there and let people know that that's a piece of content that I do periodically on my website, shepslibrary.com. But it's basically a way to say, hey, here's what's going on in the Valley recently. I did like a recap of the governance voting and just kind of like talked about here's some of the ramifications of that. I just want to kind of like take a moment to promote that a little bit, just because I've gotten some good responses from people and just like, oh, this is really helpful in kind of, especially new people that are like, hey, how can I get up to speed on how things are going? Like that's a great outlet. So wanted to plug in there, but I don't have any other topics for you.
Yeah, it's great. And they can find that on your Twitter, correct?
Yeah, well, you can find it on my Twitter or my website. If you go to my Twitter, my handle is at Farmer Piddy. And then I've got in my bio, I've got the link to my website. And then if you look at my feed, and you might have to go through some of the shit posting and get that out of the way. But I'll have the Valley reports posted there whenever I publish them.
Yeah, I love it. How long does that take you to create?
It's really hard to say because I do a lot of thinking. Like if I'm taking a shower, I'm thinking about Wolf Game. If I'm driving, I'm thinking about Wolf Game. If I'm in a work meeting, I'm thinking about Wolf Game. No, like whatever. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it. But like the last one, I did a Valley report and broke down the voting and then what it meant for each game piece. And it took me like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Not too bad.
Yeah. And that's selfless work, ladies and gents. It's not that,
I'm trying,
Pixel Vault is saying, hey, Piddy, write this farmer's report every week, right? And here's your...
I'm not getting paid for it.
Yeah. Most people think you are. I do believe that there's people in that camp that are like, oh, he's in the Farmhands Council, or Dio is getting paid for all this content of the podcast and all that. No, this is all out of the love of Wolf Game, the love of the community, and the love of Web3 and the growth that we're about to see in this ecosystem is going to be huge. So if you liked this content, we were tossing around the idea of doing this on a little bit more of a regular cadence. So even almost like it's a Valley report, but it's videoed and, we could make this into a full video podcast. But yeah, I think there's so much content. I think we're going to have a lot more content to go once we start pushing out some of the 2.0 exciting features that are about to come into play. So, but yeah, I appreciate everybody for jumping on. I hope you got some value out of our man, Mr. Farmer Piddy. Did an amazing job as always. If you haven't, hit that like, subscribe. Let's try to grow this channel so that 5 years from now, we can look back and be like, okay, I remember when we had like 40 subscribers and we're at like 40,000. Yeah. Also, I'm bringing on guests every week. That's a goal of mine. This week we had Zeneca on, but then also we have Crypto Lark coming on the show. He's got over 1 million followers, which is huge. So I'm going to do my best to kind of give some shameless Wolf Game plugs. It's just going to be exposure. So the more comments, likes, retweets, all that fun stuff, the better. So we appreciate it.
Well, since this is the first time I've been on a podcast since I bought my wolf, so I wanted to do a wolf howl. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. And I don't practice this stuff, so it's my first try. Ow!
And you're out. I like it. The man's at work too, with the
I
door
am.
closed in some random room. Imagine being his coworker and not knowing a damn thing about Wolf Game. Come on now.
No. Oh, they know about Wolf Game.
All right, brother.
They know a
Yeah.
damn thing.
Oh, they know it. I mean, you're wearing a sweatshirt, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Man, much love, brother. It's always a
Cool,
pleasure, and we'll do this again soon. So thanks for coming on.
All right, peace out.
Hey everyone, what is up? It is Digital Optimist here. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Den. Quick favor to ask, hit that subscribe button. When you hit that subscribe button, that's going to allow me to attract top tier guests to provide you with the most value possible. Give me a follow over on X at Digital Optimist.